Right, so the new year has sadly continued much like the old one in some parts of the Middle East, and that most notably applies to Lebanon, where Israel have continued to abuse the ceasefire agreement between the two countries, that the number of breaches committed by Israel has now passed 1,000 occurrences. The question naturally on many people's lips as a result of that is, where is the supposed oversight? Where is the mediation? Why is Israel not being taken to task over this? And these questions that need putting to the two nations tasked with doing that, who have either dozed off or are wearing blinkers, keeping their eyes firmly fixed on Hezbollah so they can jump on them at the first sign of them breaching the ceasefire, is a perfectly legitimate question to ask. Israel is getting away with it again. Never ever seemingly held to account, held to the same standards as everyone else, always treated as an exception, even when they are literally still invading another sovereign state. Well, Lebanese politicians have had enough. And with only a little over 3 weeks of the ceasefire remaining, and with Israel now saying they might not bother to withdraw at all, it has all but fallen apart already. So little wonder threats of Hezbollah retaliation are coming out, not least from Hezbollah's leader, who, despite all appearances that they are apparently cut off from Iran by the Syrian takeover by HTS and are a spent force, are saying they are fully operational once again, and if Israel don't leave, they'll be back. Right, so Israel has continued into the new year flat refusing to get out of southern Lebanon, refusing to acknowledge its breaches of the ceasefire agreement with Lebanon are in fact breaches, and the Lebanese are frankly left wondering where the heck the supposed oversight in all of this is, and let's face it, they're not alone in that. More than 1,000 separate breaches of the ceasefire by Israel have now been recorded, the most recent being just yesterday as the IDF advanced on and heavily attacked the village of Beit Lif yesterday, beginning with artillery shelling before Merkava tanks and bulldozers moved in and beginning a demolition operation. The day before, Israel moved on to the district of Itarun bint Jabil, where they torched homes. In light of such acts as this, therefore, it is perfectly acceptable to ask, where the heck is that oversight then? It was set up, after all. The US and France are supposed to be doing it, aren't they? The US primarily, who are supposed to be enforcing the cessation of hostilities and ensure the full implementation of UN Resolution 1701 is respected, which requires Israel to get out of Lebanon completely, and the border area south of the Litani River be an arms-free zone except for the presence of the Lebanese army and the UNIFIL peacekeepers who are patrolling and upholding that UN resolution. Not a single day since the ceasefire began on the 27th of November has Israel not violated it, though. You don't rack up 1,000 breaches in 30-odd days by taking days off, after all, do you? Israel now saying they won't leave Gaza at all ought to in fact nullify the agreement on the spot. But thus far there are no moves from either the Lebanese government or Hezbollah to end the supposed truce, even as Israel has ignored it from the start. On top of that news regarding Israel's desire to stay, though, have come leaked reports saying that not only do Israel plan on staying in southern Lebanon, but they're going to try and create a buffer zone completely illegally over strategic areas of the country. And the Cradle helpfully drew up this map detailing where Israel are occupying land along that Lebanese border within Lebanon in complete contravention of UN Resolution 1701. And it very much does look like a buffer zone is being attempted going by that image, all the yellow bits being Israeli occupied chunks of Lebanon. I particularly note the southwestern yellow blob practically touching Naqoura, because Naqoura is where UNIFIL are headquartered, so that isn't threatening at all, is it? So where are the US and France in all of this? Why are they not doing anything seemingly to rein Israel in? Well, the Ceasefire Monitoring Committee has apparently met 3 times thus far at UNIFIL headquarters in Naqoura, twice with Israeli figures present and once without them. That meeting was, however, apparently attended by Lebanon's Prime Minister Najib Mikati. They have, to put it bluntly, had trouble with Israel because they simply won't abide by the terms of the ceasefire and won't stop violating it because they argue the toss each time that they aren't actually violating anything. The problem with the US and French overseers is that they have no remit to accuse Israel of lying, to put it bluntly. And therefore you have this situation where one side is saying one thing, another is saying the opposite, but nobody has the authority to rule over both, or rule in favour of one over the other. And this is just the stupidest situation, where the overseers can watch, but they can't make any kind of a ruling. But then you remember who the US sent in to negotiate this, and that might answer a thing or two, but I'll come back to that point in a moment. The first meeting apparently lasted some 40 minutes. It was mainly just an introduction for everyone, a flesh-pressing exercise, but the second meeting was more significant, and for all of the wrong reasons. It very quickly became apparent that the Lebanese side, the Lebanese army, had been doing their homework. They came prepared. They had finalised plans for the deployment of their forces in the east, west and central areas of southern Lebanon, and Israel turned up with sod all. They were supposed to have come with a plan for their withdrawal, and they turned up with nothing. Them saying now that they have no plans to leave Lebanon, well, call me a cynic if you like, but I don't believe they ever had any plans to do so. But Israel did turn up with the thing they always turn up with: excuses. The reason they had no withdrawal plan was Lebanon's fault, apparently. Yes, how did they spin that one? I shall tell you. How did they figure out that one? Well, apparently the Lebanese army was too slow to deploy. That's why. Never mind the fact they were being held up by and were having to deal with Israeli forces who should have been leaving and decided instead to create conflict and violate the ceasefire agreement, possibly contributing to that delay, of course. But they went even further than that. That 60-day truce in order for Israel to leave Lebanon? Well, at this meeting, Israel decided that was just symbolic and not legally binding for them. If the overseers had any power of censure at all, they could have dealt with that quite easily. But they don't, so they couldn't. It's not binding on Israeli forces, it is only binding on Lebanese forces, they pronounced, and on top of that they attempted to justify their actions further by saying the Lebanese army had no intention of implementing the agreement's provision for Hezbollah to leave southern Lebanon completely and be replaced by the Lebanese army, thus justifying them staying. You can imagine what Lebanon thought of this. Apparently, following what is politely described as heated exchanges, one Lebanese general stormed out of the meeting, the argument that finally pushed him too far being Israel claiming the breaches of the ceasefire they were accused of were insignificant and therefore didn't count as breaches. One specific example given was that Israel refused to accept their use of drones, which weren't just flying over southern Lebanon, but had been seen flying over the Lebanese capital of Beirut much further north. Were not a breach of the ceasefire at all, which by association implies that Israel is going to continue to fly drones all over Lebanon completely unchecked. The third meeting, where Israel were not present, was a gathering between the Lebanese PM as well as French and US overseers along with UNIFIL, where the emphasis that Israel must abide by the signed terms of the ceasefire agreement must be implemented, and there was agreement that Israel is violating the ceasefire. Clearly, someone with the authority to arbitrate over matters Israel is arguing the toss over needs to step in, and therefore the guy the US sent to negotiate the ceasefire agreement to begin with is returning on Monday of next week to apparently do so. The trouble is, Amos Hochstein is himself Israeli, and the optics of this have been as poor can be from the outset. If he doesn't deliver and put Israel in check, it'll be seen as more than a political failure. His own bias will undoubtedly end up being called into question. But what of Hezbollah, though? Aside from a single incident of warning shots fired Israel's way, they have respected the ceasefire, but not unconditionally, and they are not amused at Israel's antics here either. A Hezbollah source is quoted as having said on this matter that, "We will be patient until the 60-day period expires and diplomatic opportunities are exhausted, and after that there is no solution but resistance." Seems fairly clear and emphatic, doesn't it? One Lebanese MP, Ehab Hamadeh, has gone further, warning Israel of Hezbollah wrath if they keep violating the ceasefire. Hamadeh is a member of Lebanon's Loyalty to the Resistance bloc in their parliament. This is the political wing of Hezbollah and holds 15 seats in the 128-seat parliament, which includes 2 members in the Lebanese government, always coalitions as those are. Well, Hamadeh has made a note of Israel's land grabs in Syria, particularly Mount Hermon along the eastern Lebanese-Syria border, and has warned any encroachment by Israel from the east will be met with a response, and also stating that if Israel is still in southern Lebanon on the 61st day, that Hezbollah will be in a position to make Israel taste their wrath. More so than the message from the Hezbollah end of the Lebanese parliament is that coming from Hezbollah's leader, Sheikh Naim Qassem, who made an address at a conference in Tehran. Oh look, Hezbollah can still reach Iran. I wonder if the reverse is true then. Basically, giving a message of, we're back. Here's an excerpt of what he said. The resistance continues and has regained vitality. It possesses deep-rooted faith and the weight of a martyrdom-believing movement that enables it to advance, excel, and become stronger in the future, God willing. The Israeli entity, which has killed people, caused destruction, and committed genocide in Gaza, has been exposed to the nation and the world as a brutal criminal entity, supported by a criminal US backer, and as an enemy of humanity. Hezbollah has decided to give an opportunity, and has determined that the state should take responsibility. This is a political phase where the state has stepped in, and there are voices which we agree with that say that the state should be responsible for implementing this agreement. Therefore, we consider the current aggression as an aggression against the state, against the international community, and against all those who sponsored this agreement. In other words, they're not going to act yet. The political process is still playing its part, of which Hezbollah are a part of. They are part of this government, as aforementioned, and this period has not yet ended. But come day 61, first day that it has ended, they're saying they are ready, able, and willing to take the fight back to Israel, and it's going to be a long way back for a peaceful resolution again from there, without any real meaningful pressure being placed on Israel. Because it hasn't happened yet, I don't have an awful lot of faith in Amos Hochstein, and this ceasefire is already over halfway over. Israel thought Hezbollah were beaten with their Al-Qaeda and Islamic State cast-offs now taking over Syria and running it, and, well, they've yet to prove otherwise, of course. But they're talking the talk nonetheless right now, and this isn't what Israel will want to be hearing. They also thought Hamas was beaten after all, and, well, look at the rockets flying Israel's way again from Gaza. Get the latest details of that story in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't already done so to help support the channel going forwards. Massively appreciate it as that is. And also make sure you don't miss out on new daily content as well, which I'm absolutely sure you would hate to miss. At least I assume as much if you got this far through this video. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.